Hi guys, it's Emily from Novel Novels and welcome to today's video. This is my March wrap up part 2. Now March has got to have been one of the best reading months this year, is definite, and for a long time if I'm honest, because I've read some amazing books. I've had, I think, just slightly more 5 stars than 4 stars, but it's been fantastic. I think I've made a few changes in the fact that I decided that at the end of the month, I'm not going to go with just reading any old book. I'm going to get them off the shelves, but I'm going to go with books I want to read. So just because a book's not on my TBR doesn't mean that it's not going to get read. And it just gives me that little bit more flexibility, a little bit less stress. And I listened to Charlie from Charles Heathcote because it was his idea. We sort of discussed things and he was like, just change things. I can decide how I want to read. I don't have to be determined by too much structure. So let's get on with the facts, let's get on with the figures, and let's talk about the figures. Now, I will be honest, I did buy a few books and I did have quite a few books given to me. So that has affected my unread TBR. But a sneaky peek, next Wednesday you will be seeing my March haul. I've decided that I'm not going to do it vlog style anymore. I'm going to do proper hauls at the end of every month and just keep it structured, keep it real, and go for it. But let's start off with the figures for today. So my March unread TBR was 417. I bought 10 books. I got 28 gifted to me. Charlie, my darling sister, has got a lot to answer for with a lot of those. She's amazing. She's going to up my April figures as well, by the way. So that's a total of 38 extra books added on. I read 28 books off my unread TBR. That's not all the books I've read this month though. And I unhauled 1 unread book. So I deducted 29 books. So now my April unread TBR is 426 books, which is only an extra 9 than last month. That's I'm quite happy with that. I think that's within my sort of limits. So really happy with that. I read a total of 34 books this month. I am really, really happy with that. I did also have 1 DNF. I've just realised if I take my DNF off that means I've actually scrapped that. I've got to change that. My unread TBR will actually be 25 books because I've just realised I've got to take my DNF off that. Yes! Only 8 books. Yay, I did it! Didn't go mad this month. Yes! So, let's get on with the genres. Now, the genres have been affected this month because I decided that I'm not going to class a book as chick lit anymore because that doesn't sound grammatically correct and it doesn't sound correct in the way that we're doing things at the moment. So all my, what was chick lit books are going under contemporary, which has made my contemporary figure a lot more because I used to have contemporary and chick lit separate. But now they're all going to be under contemporary and I'm going to keep it that way. So let's start off with the least number of books. So I've only read 2 classics this month, but I think that's more in line with what I'm going to try and do. I think 2 classics means they're a bit more, I don't know, but they were really good. 1 was really good anyway. I read 4 non-fiction books, which was more than I expected, and I liked that. I read 6 fantasy, yay! Love that, love my fantasy books. I wonder what that's going to be like next month. Love that. Then I read 10, sorry about that noise, I think that's an aeroplane or something outside. Sorry about that. 10 historical fiction and 12 contemporaries. I'm happy with that. Can't believe we just had that interruption there. That scared me a little bit then. And now let's get on with showing you the books. Figures, happy? I'm happy with that. 12 historical fiction. I'm happy with those genres, really happy. Anyway, I only read 1 2-star book this month, which was done in my previous TBR, which I will link below. Then I read a total of 6 3 stars in the whole month, and I will show you the 3 stars that I read this half. So the first one was A House Between Tides by Sarah Maine. This was a book that's been on my shelf for over a year, so I did want to clear it off. It's historical fiction, and if I'm honest, it was a lower 3-star. It got better at the end, but it's a captivating story of a crumbling estate in the wilds of Scotland. It's century-old secret and enduring mystery. There is a mystery within that does give it a bit of extra interest. It's got dual timelines. It's all right, but it's going to get unhauled. By the way, guys, any books that I unhaul, please let me know in the comments below if you'd like them. It's first come, first served basis, and I will try and send some gifts out to people because I love doing that. The next one is a non-fiction book, which is this one, which is The Boy He Left Behind, The Man's Search for His Lost Father. This was very, very hard hitting, and it really pushed me. It is about and it does tell you stories. It's basically about a guy who's never met his father. His father was estranged. He's only got one brief memory of him, and it's his story, and that with his siblings. This is very hard hitting, so be warned, there is a lot of triggers in this, but it will be going to charity shops. So again, it's one I bought last year when I was doing my mad book buying and buying books that I wasn't sure about, but I just picked up. So that's going to be unhauled. Then I've got my other 3-star is The Court of Frost and Starlight, which is by Sarah J. Maas. I read it on an ebook, on my library ebook. It's a novella, I believe, in the series, but it was all right. It just wasn't as good as the other books in the series. And it left me sort of a bit confused about certain characters, and it was all right, and I'm glad I read it, but not as good as the rest of the series. Then I've got 2 3.5 stars because I gained a new app. I got the Storygraph app, and you can actually put 3.5 stars on that, which I like, which I love. I'm now going to have, so excited to do that. My sister Charlie got me to get that app, and it's really interesting. So I'm now going to have 2 different book apps going. I've got my Goodreads and I've got my Storygraph. But the only thing with Storygraph is the figures don't match up always, because if you have to add a book to their Storygraph, it affects the figures. Don't know why. Anyway, my 3.5 stars books. It's one of my last books of the month. It was 204 Rosewood Lane by Debbie McCumber. It looked like a springish book. I love Debbie McCumber's other books. The only thing I'll say is that I didn't realise this is her second in a series. It's set in the early 2000s, so it's one of her earlier books. And I think you can tell that in the writing. I think you can tell that it's quite a bit older, so it's an older contemporary. And where it's been second in the series, you're meeting characters that have already been in the other books. There is a lot of characters in this because it's from Cedar Cove, it's an environment, and you sort of have to, it takes a bit of time to get into it. But then when you get into it, it's really good. There is a mystery element within this contemporary, which I did find really fascinating. And that was what had me gripped until the end. That's what gave it the extra half star. And the ending of it is really good. And it has made me want to pick up the next one, which is 311 Pelican Court. I now want to get the next one and carry on the series because it could be interesting. That was 3.5 stars. That one's going to be charity shopped. This one is my other 3.5 stars, which is my non-fiction book, Blood on the Thistle by Stuart Pearson. This is about the Cranston family and their remarkable sacrifices in the war. This is non-fiction, but it's very hard-hitting again. This family is massive. There was 3 daughters at the start, and I'm just going to show you the family tree so you've got that. So there was a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 children. 1 died at birth, and quite a few of them got sent to war, and I think 4 or 5 died in war. And this is their life and their marriages, and it's very fascinating. I kept looking back at the timeline to find out what was going to happen. Very, very hard-hitting, because this is in the Great War. This is set in the First World War, which I hadn't read very much about, and I wanted to read about. This was good, but it's very hard-hitting. So that was 3.5 stars, because I think, again, the ending and non-fiction, you can't rate it too much or grasp it too much. Now, so I read a total of 6 3-stars, 2 3.5, and now I'm going on to my 4 stars. This next bit, oh my God. All of the next books I loved. Some of them I'm keeping, some of them I can't decide. But I read a total of 12 4 stars, and I will be honest, 13 5. So this is where the books just went, wow, and ballooned. I loved it. First one on my pile is 4 stars, and that's Mary, Queen of Scots by Jean Plaidy. It's my first Jean Plaidy book. And it's like random, like number 9th in the series of hers, which I didn't realise at the time. My sister Charlie has given me 3 more books in this series. She's given me 2, 3 and 4 in the series, which I will be reading soon. And that will be on April's haul, because I'm putting it on April's books. Yes, I know I'm being cheeky, but I didn't want to ruin. Yeah, I got them too late in the week to add them to March TV. But this was really good. It's my first Jean Plaidy book, and it's about Mary, Queen of France. It's King Henry VIII's younger sister, Mary, who went on to be the Queen of France, and it's her story. I didn't know much about her, but blooming heck, was she one hell of a fiery character. She was determined, she was fiery, and this really tells you about her. Thoroughly loved it. Definitely see now why Julie, the Hungry Bookworm, likes Jean Plaidy. Really, really recommend it. But that's going because it's a Tudor book, and I've got no room on my Tudor shelves. And my Tudor shelf is like getting more and more jammed, and I have to decide very, very picky which ones of those books I will reread. The next one was a book I've got read as an extra one for middle grade March, and that's Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. I enjoyed this, but it wasn't my best of Roald Dahl's books. I read it because it was published in the year I was born, in the decade I was born, and Linda from Linda's World of Books told me about that. I can now see why Roald Dahl is problematic, and there are certain bits in this that I can very much see as problematic. It's the second book. It's the book after Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And if I'm honest, I think I might give it to Mia, because I don't see me rereading that. It wasn't the best Roald Dahl, in my opinion. Then I read, I'm not saying this is in reading order, by the way, a Cecilia Ahern book, How to Fall in Love. I enjoyed this. It's one of her, very much of her contemporary books, but this is very hard-hitting. This does have triggers for suicide in it, suicidal attempts, and domestic violence. So be warned. There are some triggers for this. Christine Rose is crossing the Halfpenny Bridge in Dublin late one night when she sees a stranger, Adam, poised to jump. Desperate to help, she talks him into a reckless deal. It gives her 2 weeks until his 31st birthday. She'll prove that life is worth living. Romance, but it's got a lot of triggers. Cecilia Ahern, loved it. That's 4 stars. It will not be a keepie, because that one will make me cry if I read that. Then I also read a Kathy Glass book, A Baby's Cry. This is one of her earlier books, because I can tell because her children in this are quite a lot younger than they are in the books that I've read recently. But this is about a baby who she gets this baby from when it's newborn, literally the day it was born. And this is about this baby's story and her story, because she doesn't normally look after babies. And this is very hard, again, very hard hitting. But there is a story within this about another child that she fosters for short term. And that child's story is very, very hard hitting. So please go into this aware. Check out my Storygraph review, because there are some triggers in this. But it's beautiful writing. Kathy Glass is an amazing author. And this would be my non-fiction book. For Femathon, which I forgot to mention at the start, I did Femathon and I completed all of the board. Yes! I did it, Kat. I really did it. So that was my non-fiction book for that. And that was very good. But again, it's not one that I'm going to be keeping. And my pile's gone big. Then I read Chocolat with the lovely Gemma from Read a Book Gem. This is one of, I know Charlie from Charles Heathcote, his channel, he loves Joanne Harris's books. And this is, I don't know what the genre for this is. I put it down as contemporary because it's got a bit of magical realism. It's the start of a series, believe it or not. And it's really, really good. It is about the exotic stranger. When an exotic stranger, Vianne Rochelle, arrives in the French village of Nesquinet and opens a chocolate boutique directly opposite the church, Father Reynard identifies her as a serious danger to his flock, especially as it's the beginning of Lent, the traditional season for self-denial. War is declared as the priest denounces the newcomer's wares as an ultimate sin. This is, very interesting, very hard-hitting, but not the best book I've read this month, but it was very good. And it's my film cover. Did love reading it with Gemma, really interesting, and it was quite quick to read. I think there's a bit of romance in this, a bit exciting, and it is good, and I'll definitely read more Joanne Harris books, but 4 stars, so I will be giving that away. Then I decided to read a book for the Irish Readathon. I decided to read Quentins by Mead Vinci. My sister gave me this, and this surprised me. I didn't expect to like this, because one of Mead Vinci's short stories I've not loved as much, but I really enjoyed this. Every table at Quentin's restaurant in Dublin has 1,000 stories to tell. The staff and customers all have tales of their own, and the restaurant itself has had times where it looked set for success. This is a lot of characters, a lot of stories mixed in, but blooming good. I really enjoyed this. Very, very good. But again, it's very hard hitting, so be warned. But that's 4 stars. And then my most recent book that I literally finished last night, I'm filming this on the 31st, was Goodbye Liverpool by Maureen Lee. I love Maureen Lee's wartime books. Thoroughly loved this, but it was 4 stars because it was fantastic, and I flew through it in a day, which tells you how good it was. But blooming it, there is again some triggers. It's set in Liverpool 1937. Jessica is trapped in a loveless marriage, bullied and belittled by her husband. She stays silent for the sake of a young family, but when he settles her home and disappears with her beloved children, Jessica's life is shattered. This, again, very hard-hitting, very emotional. Loved it. Not one of my best Maureen Lees, but again, really good. Now I'm going into my stack of 5 stars. And again, I want you to guess which out of these 5 stars, I've got 2 favourites because I couldn't pick one. Which out of these 5 stars do you think is going to be my favourite? I will not tell you that until the very end. Now, first book is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I read this with Gemma from Read a Book Gem and Tom from Tom Reads Things. He kind of sort of stopped going because he couldn't carry on at the same speed as we are. I loved this. I know I loved all of them. This is not to give you a hint, but it was freaking amazing. I love Elizabeth Gaskell's work. She is one of my favourite classic authors. I love North and South, and I would say I love this just as much as North and South. This is Molly's, it's her last novel, so the ending of it wasn't completed correctly, but it was still done amazingly. This is about the story of Molly Gibson, and we meet her and her father at the start of this. Her mother died when she was little, and this is her story and her. Oh, it's just amazing. I can't give you too much away. I really think with classics you can't give too much away, but I thoroughly loved this. I can't believe how much I loved it. You can tell it's a bit battered and bruised, which I'm a bit gutted about. But, I love Elizabeth Gaskell. I've now got to get off my bum and get Ruth, because that's my last one that I don't own or not read. But 5 stars all the way. That's my keepy. Now, a book that I still need to check with my sister whether this is a gift or whether it's a borrow. I counted it as a borrow, so I don't know if she's going to want this back. And this is one I read for middle grade March as well. The Midnight Guardians by Ross Montgomery. I really enjoyed this. This is fantasy mixed with historical fiction. I think I classed it as fantasy. But when evacuee Cole's childhood imaginary friends come to life, he discovers a world where their myths and legends are real. But they bring dire news. Cole's sister is in danger. Together with his guardians, a 6-foot tiger, a badger in a waistcoat and a miniature knight, Cole must race the Blitz-bombed London to save her. This has got so many morals and fairy tales within it. Fantasy mixed with historical fiction in such a great way. And it's almost like, I would say it's almost like Russian fairy tales. It's kind of the way that, like, the war is torn into it and how morals and how bad and versus good. Oh, I just loved it. Thank you, Charlie, for lending me this. It's brilliant. Loved it. Then I decided that seeing as Gaia got me the last in the My Mummy Doesn't Get series, I thought I would pick up another book that I wanted to read as an extra that I've had on my shelves for a while. Mummy Doesn't Give a Beep, 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 beep. I think it's F-U-C-K, but I don't swear. This is the 3rd in the series. I've now got the 4th and last one. Mummy dreams of a quirky rural cottage with roses around the door and chatty chickens in the garden. But life is never going to be as much as she planned. Paxo, Oxo and Bistro turn out to be highly rambunctious and rather than merely chatty, and the roses have jagged thorns. This starts when she is split up from her husband. I didn't realise that these aren't actually non-fiction, they're actually fiction. Based on non-fiction, I believe. So I need to change my shelves around to put this in a different place. But this is blooming good. I totally get why I love this series. It makes you laugh to the point where your sides split. It does make you cry at certain points in this, but it's fantastic. 5 stars all the way. Loved it. Then again, that was another extra one I picked off my shelves. Then another one I picked off my shelves because I decided that it was brilliant. Another one for Femathon by Robin Benway, It's Far from the Tree. This is a special limited edition book proof. I think this is a doodah one. You know, when those books go before they come out, proof copy. And this is brilliant. Sometimes family hurts each other, but after that's done, you bandage each other up and you move on. Together, you've got us. Together, you've got us now. Like it or not, we've got you. This is about 3 siblings who are birth siblings, but they got split up when they were babies, and they've all had their own different journeys. So you've got 16-year-old Grace gives up her baby. When 16-year-old Grace gives up her baby for adoption, she decides to find more out about her biological mother, and in doing so, she discovers 2 siblings she never knew existed. Then you've got Maya, her loudmouth younger sister, who's also keen to find traces of herself among these not-so-quite strangers. And when her adopted family's problems begin to surface, Maya can't help but wonder where she belongs. And then you've got Joaquin, I can't say that right, their stoic older brother. In 17 years in foster care, he's learnt that secrets and fears are best kept close to his chest. Their individual stories are connected so well. This is beautiful, hard-hitting. You will cry your eyes out when you read this, no question. But I thoroughly loved it. I love the sibling side of it. Then I got Inkheart, which I finished yesterday. Again, I read with Gemma. It's the first in a trilogy. I'm going to pick up the rest in the series because it was friggin' amazing. Fantasy all the way. Loved it. It's got book quotes in it. It's got magical fantasy in it. It's got people you love in it. It's got bad characters, good characters, great mix. Thoroughly loved that. And then my last book on this pile. But before I tell you my last book on the pile, I've got to tell you about an audiobook that I listened to, which was Dead to Me by Leslie Pierce. That I listened to on audiobook from the library. 5 stars. It's historical fiction. Oh my God, that took me on a journey which I didn't expect for an audiobook. I was crying from start to finish on that audiobook. It was set in the wartime. 2 very different young ladies and their journeys, and be warned, you will cry if you listen to that or read it. And then last but no means least, The Other Einstein by Marie Benedict. I'm going to check with Gemma whether Gemma wants this because it was brilliant. I buddy read this with Angie from Science Mama. Oh my goodness, this book is historical fiction. It's just incredible. My sister Charlie gave this to me and I didn't expect to love it. It's about Einstein's first wife. Now, it is historical fiction, not non-fiction, so not every bit of this is true. But it tells you about Einstein, and at the start of this, you love him. But I'm not going to tell you whether that stays the same. It's got science in it, it's got passion, it's got heartbreak. It is amazing. The science quotes in it are brilliant. The women in it, the fact that it's set at the early 1900s when feminism was happening. It's got that in it, it's got race in it, it's got hard-hitting things in it. It's got motherhood, but just journeys. Oh, I loved it. It was really another really good book. Loved buddy reading with Angie. Can't wait to find another book to buddy read with her. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. So I'll talk about other things, but think about which book you think are going to be my favourite book. But I did complete all the challenges for Femathon, the little board thingies on Kat's channel. I will link that below. I did read all my books for Middle Grade March, which I loved. Middle Grade March went really well. So happy with that. I will say, obviously, if you've seen my April TBR, I will link that below as well. But I will say that I have made the decision that I'm not going to do any readathons in April, probably not in May either. Can't remember if there's any big ones that are coming up in May, but I don't think so. But I'm certainly not doing any readathons in April. I will do Jane Austen in July, and I will do, obviously, October, but I'm going to try and cut down my readathons just to try and give myself a bit more freedom. I'm going to make my TBRs a bit smaller in the fact that so I can just randomly pick books off my shelves to read. And I'm going to try and be a bit more gentle with myself. Don't know how I'm going to do in April, because obviously April I've got 2 big books that are going to be read, 2 or 3 big books that are going to be read over April and May. So that may affect April's figures, but I'm happy. March was a great reading month. Now, shall I tell you? My 2 favourite books of the second half of March, I'm not going to count the first half, are Wives and Daughters and Far From the Tree. Polar opposite books in so many ways, but both have very strong female characters, both have very strong morals, and both are about families, which I love. March was an amazing reading month. I can't thank you all enough for all your support and love and the best wishes in March. It was amazing. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and not subscribed yet, ring on my ding-a-ling, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.